Welcome back. We turn now to two officer-involved shootings in two very different American cities. Criminal homicide charges have been lodged against East Pittsburgh police officer Michael Rosfeld, who shot and killed 17-year-old Antoine Rose as he fled a traffic stop. Investigators say Rose, who is African-American, was unarmed. The shooting sparked fierce protest in the immediate aftermath of the incident. Prosecutors have since said the officer acted, quote, recklessly and without justification. Now, it bears reporting that two loaded handguns were recovered from the vehicle, which had been involved in a drive-by shooting just minutes before. And then there's the second killing, this one in Galveston, Texas, where 18-year-old Luis Argueta was shot Monday morning while running away from a police officer. Like Rose, Argueta was also unarmed when the fatal bullet struck his body, although investigators say he too left behind a handgun in his vehicle. Unlike Pittsburgh, there have been no protests demanding justice for Luis. Why? Two teens, both killed while unarmed and running from police. One black, one Latino, one in a northern city, the other from the south. I'm going to start with Carmen.
You know, let's be clear. A lot of people have trouble with this notion that the police are subject to the same laws as everyone else when it comes to shooting. If you are not in fear for your life or some serious bodily injury to yourself, you don't have the right to shoot. And in these cases, both of these gentlemen are running away from the police. And so it's hard to justify either one. But the community at large has got to stop giving justifications for officers because they put themselves out there in the line of duty and because they do a great job every day. The law is the law. It applies to everyone the same. And in both of these shootings, I think they're problematic. But because the community, our community in Galveston, isn't really taking them to task about that, and because they're not giving us enough information to know exactly what happened in Galveston, there's no protest and no one seems to care.
Nyanza.
I think that, you know, a major problem is the fact that we have to protest. You know, the fact that we need to have a parade of people voicing concern over another police murder of another minor is a problem. You know, the black people, they're used to galvanizing, getting all together, whether it's on the East Coast, from New York to Philly to Chicago. They will always start marching and protesting. Something has happened in the South. Maybe it was because we got the memo late, right, all the way from Juneteenth about being free slaves, or maybe we just have a little bit more police oppression out here, or maybe we're a little bit more afraid of what will happen to us if we protest too loudly, the ramifications of that. Or maybe we realize that nothing is going to get done even when you protest. We were talking about this at the break. Antoine was murdered a week ago. You know, wasn't it? Luis was murdered this week. No one has gone up and started petitioning for the police officer to be fired. We don't know if Galveston, we just had a judge here from Galveston County. I don't even know if he said anything about the shooting, did he? I mean, this is a major issue. And just like you said in the break, Greg, you know, yes, we have had a police officer that's been indicted, but will that stick? They're all like Teflon Dons like John Gotti. I don't know a police officer yet in the United States of America, or let's just take Texas alone, who has been actually charged with murder and that charge has stuck and he's actually went to prison. So until I see the handcuffs and the shackles like they did Ron Reynolds when they put him in the black and white and all that, if I don't see that, then I don't believe there's any justice. So all this protesting is for now.
Okay, I'm going to go Tony, then we're going to Marcus to close. Where is the Latino community?
Well, I want to follow up on some things that Nyanza said, because there's just too much oppression. There will be justice for Luis. The community needs to galvanize, and folks are going to help with that. But Monday, the community was protesting downtown because you had the court case of Johnny Hernandez, who people saw the video. This is not an undocumented brown man. He's a U.S. citizen who was murdered by a sheriff who was off duty. Now, of course, people who are defending him will say, well, he hit the sheriff first. Yes, he should not have done that, obviously. But is that a death sentence? And, of course, Nyanza brought up, do we see justice? That was a mistrial. That was injustice. So it's this complicated issue. On top of it, let's throw some other names of young folks. Claudia Patricia Gomez Gonzalez was killed at the hands of Border Patrol. There were outrage over that. That's not heard. So what I'm getting at is kind of like what you're saying, Nyanza, on top of it, and then people don't hear. But let's make something clear, too. Johnny Mata is ill right now. We called him Mr. Lulac. He made sure that people knew that there was unity between African Americans and Latinos. I'm also going to link this to D.L. Hewley. He's got a new book out called How Not to Get Shot. His line in the book is, How Not to Get Shot in America. Don't be black. Evidently, we need to add a chapter. Don't be brown.
Okay, yep. Marcus, close us out on this topic.
You know, I want to add on to Nyanza. because if we don't, people will say, oh, that's not true. The officer that was shot in the Walter Scott chase, he was convicted and he was sentenced. Now, he didn't get life, he got 20 years, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Good.
Right, but here's the thing. I have said, and I will continue to say, I will continue to sound like a broken record until we fix this broken record, that police officers are not trained to match the capacity of their authority. Bill is a lawyer. He had to go to undergrad for 4 years and law school for 3 years. A police officer has to go through 6 months of training and a 10-minute ride along. That is not enough time and training to say that you have the power of life and death in your hand. Every other person that has the power of life and death, a judge, a lawyer that can try what do you call it? Death penalty case, a heart surgeon. You can become a cop quicker than you can become a master plumber. And that's outrageous. We've got to stop doing this. And for those liberals that love separating kids, we're separating kids from families when we shoot them in the back. So liberals, come on to the front for that. We're separating. Jordan Baker's kid is separated from his family. Antoine's kid is separated from his family. We've got to be honest about whether or not we really care about these kids if we're not going to care about them wholeheartedly.
Okay. In Annapolis, Maryland, another mass shooting. This time the target was the local newspaper, and before it was over, 4 journalists and a co-worker were dead at the hands of a gunman with a long-running vendetta against the publication. As we've come to know, no segment in our society is immune from sudden and vicious attacks. But one has to ask, has President Trump's persistent vitriol aimed at the so-called fake media put lives in danger? Has his demonizing of journalists as America's enemy made life more dangerous for those who report the news? I'm going to ask Bill King, because Bill King has been a columnist, and people sometimes don't like what you have to say.
What? Everybody
None
likes
of us like that.
What's your read on that issue?
It happened once or twice. Look, I don't like the rhetoric that Trump uses about the media. Although I will say it's frankly not that much different from what we had in the past, especially if you go back to the beginning of the Republic when John Adams passed the Sedition Act and was actually throwing reporters into jail for criticizing his administration. So there's always been this, this tension between the government and the press. It has gotten too vitriol. But I want to get back, just like Marcus complains about the training on police, which I agree with you 100%. I want to get back to, look, this guy obviously had a serious mental health issue, and he was examined and determined not to be a threat. I mean, how could you reach that conclusion when you see what this guy's history was? About 40, 50 years ago, we decided that we were going to not institutionalize people that had serious mental health problems. And we basically put all those people out of those institutions, and we put them either on the street or in jail. And that was a bad mistake, and we've got to go back and rethink that decision.
Jess, I want to ask you, are people off base to suggest that the president, may be emboldening folks who have, hard feelings for the media?
In this case, this person, literally, you said he had a long-running vendetta with this paper. He did. He chided them all the time for a story that they ran on him years ago. So there was a known threat here. And I want to go back to, where are we missing these things along the way? In several of these cases, in these mass shootings, the shooters have had a record with approaching law enforcement, or law enforcement has approached them along the way. Why are we missing this link in the process? Somewhere along the way, our experts have to take these things more seriously as the clear threats that they are.
Got to leave it there. Still ahead, our panel answers the question, what did we miss? So stay with us.
The girl, remember, he stalked her, she had to move out of state.